There was a sound your living room made that no living room will ever make again. A heavy click from a little aluminum box in your father's hand, a sound with actual metal in it, and across the room, the channel changed. No batteries in the box. There were never batteries in it. It worked for 25 years without ever needing anything at all, and if you asked how, nobody in the house could tell you. The box said Space Command, and the television it commanded said Zenith, and the company that made both of them was, for most of a century, the proudest name in American electronics. The last television ever mass-produced by an American company was a Zenith. And here's the part nobody knows. Zenith is inside the TV you are watching this on right now. This is that story. If you grew up between 1955 and 1985, it is partly your story too. Start with the television itself, because it was not an appliance, it was furniture. The biggest, heaviest, most important piece of furniture in the house, a Zenith console in walnut, long as a sofa table, low on 4 tapered legs, with a fabric grill over the speaker, and sometimes little doors you could close over the screen, as if the television were something precious enough to be put away. It took 2 men to move it, and it never got moved. The whole room was arranged around it. Your father's chair sat at the exact right angle to it, the way a pew faces an altar, and the family photograph stood on top of it, because the top of the Zenith was the most visible shelf in the entire house. When people came over, they were not shown the television. They were seated before it, and it warmed up. You turned the knob, a solid mechanical thunk, and then you waited, and the machine came to life slowly, a glow rising in the middle of the glass, sound arriving before picture, the way a fire catches. And when you turned it off at night, the picture did not just stop. It collapsed into a single bright white dot in the center of the dark screen, and the dot hung there, shrinking like a star going out. And if you were a kid, you watched it every single time until it vanished. No screen made in the last 40 years has done that. There are men in their 60s who can still see that DOT. Then there was the box, 1956. Most of America was getting out of the chair to change between 3 channels, and Zenith shipped a television you could command from across the room with the little machined aluminum box that made that heavy K chunk. Here is what was actually happening, and it is better than magic. Inside the box, there were no electronics at all. No circuit, no battery, no bulb, just 4 small hammers and 4 precisely cut aluminum rods, like the tines of a tuning fork. Squeeze the button, and a hammer struck a rod, and the rod rang at a pitch too high for the human ear, and a microphone inside the television heard the ultrasonic note and obeyed. Channel up, channel down, sound on, sound off. A television you talked to with struck metal, like a tiny church bell only the machine could hear. Which is why the thing never needed batteries, and why your grandmother called the remote the clicker until the day she died, and why half of America still does. The click was real. It was hammers. And there was one side effect the engineers knew about and kept anyway. Certain jingling sounds, keys, dog tags, could ring at the same frequencies. Millions of American dogs changed millions of American channels just by scratching their collars. And every family thought their television was slightly haunted, and nobody minded. One quick word, because we are about to get to the man behind all this, and he is one of the great forgotten characters in American business. If this living room is coming back to you, the walnut cabinet, the dot, take 1 second and subscribe, because how this company died is a story every American should know, and where its ghost lives now will genuinely surprise you. All right, the Commander. Because a Zenith was not just what you watched, it was what your father believed in. He said the slogan out loud, unprompted, as consumer wisdom, the way men quoted scripture, the quality goes in before the name goes on. He would open the back and point hand-wired, not like the cheap ones. And whether or not he fully understood what he was pointing at, he was right. Zeniths were built in Chicago by American workers soldering by hand, and they were bought as 20-year machines, repaired and kept. The television equivalent of a good watch. The repairman himself would tell you, and the repairman had no reason to lie. The Zenith was the one he saw least. That was the machine. Now, the two young men at a kitchen table who started it, the commander who built it into an empire, and the 20-year war that killed the last American television. It began in 1918 at a kitchen table in Chicago, where two young ham radio operators named Carl Hassel and Ralph Matthews started building radio equipment for other amateurs. Their station call sign was 9ZN, and when they needed a company name, they stretched it into a word, ZN, Zenith. Then in 1921, they met the man who would turn a kitchen table into an empire. Eugene F. McDonald, a Navy lieutenant commander from the Great War, who insisted on the title commander for the rest of his life and earned it. McDonald was the greatest showman American electronics ever had. He put Zenith shortwave radios on Arctic expeditions and made the newspapers follow the signal. He became the first president of the National Association of Broadcasters. He sold radios by selling wonder, and behind the showmanship, he enforced one iron rule on the factory floor: build it better than it needs to be, and say so. The quality goes in before the name goes on was not written by an ad agency. It was written by conviction. And Zenith kept getting to the future first. In 1951, decades before cable, Zenith ran Phonovision, the first serious test of pay television in America, movies delivered to the home for a fee, in 1951. In 1955, a Zenith engineer named Eugene Pauly built the flash-matic, the first wireless TV remote in the world, a ray gun that fired light at sensors in the set's corners. It confused easily. Sunlight could change the channel. So a quiet physicist at Zenith named Robert Adler solved it a year later with the hammers and the aluminum rods, the space command, the batteryless clicker that ran for a quarter of a century on nothing but mechanics. Two Zenith engineers, Pauly and Adler, invented the thing your hand reaches for every night of your life. In 1997, the Television Academy gave the two old men an Emmy for it. When Robert Adler died in 2007, the obituaries called him the man who invented channel surfing, which means they credited him, gently, with changing how the human race sits. Through the 1960s and the 1970s, Zenith stood at the very top of American television, year after year among the best-selling and most trusted sets in the country. Tens of thousands of American workers, the great plants around Chicago, running full. RCA had the laboratories and the broadcast empire, but Zenith had the living rooms, and the living rooms believed. One quick thing before the fall, because Zenith did not go quietly. Zenith went down fighting, all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. If this story has earned it, tap the like button. It helps a small channel keep telling them. All right, the war. The first force came by ship. Starting in the late 1960s, Japanese television makers entered the American market with sets priced below anything Zenith could match. And Zenith believed and said publicly that the prices were below cost, that the American market was being bought deliberately at a loss to destroy the domestic industry, a practice with an ugly technical name: dumping. So Zenith did the most Zenith thing imaginable. It sued. It fought in the trade courts and the federal courts for years, case after case, appeal after appeal, one American company trying to hold the door, until the fight reached the Supreme Court in 1986, and Zenith lost. And whatever the legal merits, the economic verdict had already come in. The American consumer, standing in the store, chose the $300 set over the $500 one every day, millions of times. Quality was the promise. Price was the war, and a promise loses to a price almost every time. The second force was what the war did to the company itself. To survive the price fight, Zenith had to become what it had always refused to be. The hand-wired Chicago chassis gave way to boards. The plants moved one line at a time across the border to Mexico, tens of thousands of American jobs going with them. And each move was announced with the same corporate sorrow. And each one was probably unavoidable, and that is the tragedy. The Steelman version is real. Management was not stupid or greedy, they were cornered. But by the late 1980s, the company whose entire identity was where and how the thing was built no longer built it that way, or there. The name stayed on the front of the set. The quality that was supposed to go in before it was now negotiated in a spreadsheet like everyone else's. And the third force is the cruelest because it was Zenith's finest hour. In the late 1980s, dying, bleeding money, the company bet what strength it had left on the next television, high-definition digital broadcasting, and Zenith's engineers won. The digital transmission system chosen for the American high-definition television standard in 1996 was built on Zenith's technology. Every over-the-air digital broadcast in the United States to this day, every antenna television signal in the country still travels on Zenith engineering. They invented the future of American television one last time and went broke doing it, and the payoff arrived just after the patient died. LG of Korea, which had bought control in 1995, took full ownership in 1999. The last great American television company ended as a brand label and a patent portfolio owned and sold. There was no crash, no scandal. The last American television rolled off a line and no one photographed it because no one knew it was the last. But run the accounting honestly and something strange emerges. Zenith never actually left your living room. The remote in your hand tonight is the great-grandchild of Adler's hammers. The word clicker, still in your family's mouth, is a Zenith fossil. A sound preserved in language 40 years after the sound itself went silent. And if you ever watch broadcast television, the signal reaching your set is running on Zenith's last invention. The company lost the war, the factories, the name, everything except the part that mattered most, which is that its fingerprints are on every television in America, including the one in front of you right now. Empires fall, engineering stays. We did not just lose a TV maker. We lost the idea the slogan stood for, that the name on a thing is a man's word about what is inside it. Your father believed that, and for one company, for about 50 years, it was actually true. So tell me down in the comments, did your family have the Zenith, and what did the cabinet look like? The walnut console, the doors, the photographs on top? Does your family still say clicker? Because I want to count you. Tell me about the dog changing the channel with his collar, because I know some of you watched it happen. And if that console is still standing in a basement or a garage somewhere, yours or your father's, go down and look at it tonight. Lift the lid, read the label. I will be here when you get back. I read every single comment.